Get back in your bed. Nurse Deborah Walsh's fingers dug into Dr. Maya Okonkwo's arm. Her nails left red marks on brown skin. Psych patients don't get to wander around my ER. Get back to your room before I call security. I'm not a patient. Maya's voice stayed calm despite the grip tightening on her arm. I'm here for a meeting with your hospital administrator. Sure you are. Deborah's laugh was sharp, cruel. And I'm the Queen of England. She yanked harder. Move, now. The emergency room buzzing with organized chaos. Gurneys lined the hallways. Monitors beeped their steady rhythms. Doctors shouted orders. Nurses rushed between rooms. And in the middle of it all, a black woman in a Howard University hoodie and jeans covered in someone else's blood was being dragged toward the psychiatric ward. If you'd just let me explain. Maya tried to pull her arm free. Explain? Deborah's voice rose loud enough to draw attention from nearby staff. You people always have explanations, always have excuses. Security! 2 guards appeared within seconds, both white, both built like linebackers. The larger one, name tag reading Morrison, grabbed Maya's other arm. This one trying to escape again? He asked Deborah. Again? Maya's eyes widened. I've never been here before. They all say that. The second guard, Martinez, moved to block her path. Come on, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. You don't understand. Maya's calm was cracking. I flew in from Atlanta this morning. I have a meeting with Administrator Richard Cole at 2 p.m. If you just let me show you my identification. Morrison tightened his grip. Yeah, that's what the last one said before she tried to stab a doctor with a scalpel. I'm not trying to stab anyone. I'm trying to do my job. Your job? Deborah stepped closer, invading Maya's space. Honey, your job is to stay in bed and take your medication like a good girl. Now stop resisting before this gets ugly. A small crowd had gathered. Medical students in short white coats, residents in scrubs, an attending physician with silver hair and judgmental eyes, all watching, all assuming. Someone called Dr. Patterson, Deborah announced to the crowd. Tell him we have another 5150 situation, possible danger to self and others. Involuntary psychiatric hold, 72 hours minimum. Maya's heart rate spiked. Look at her hands, a resident pointed. Covered in blood. She probably hurt someone. The blood isn't mine, Maya said desperately. There was a car accident on Route 9. A teenager. Collapsed lung. I performed emergency CPR until paramedics arrived. Collapsed lung. Deborah's eyebrows shot up. So now you're a doctor? I am a doctor.
The crowd erupted in laughter. Not kind laughter. The kind that strips dignity like acid on skin. Let me guess, Deborah's voice dripped with mock sympathy. You're a brain surgeon. No, wait, a heart specialist. Or maybe you invented a cure for cancer? I'm a healthcare systems analyst and trauma surgeon. Maya's voice remained steady. I specialize in hospital efficiency and emergency medicine. I've published 47 peer-reviewed papers, and I'm here to evaluate whether St. Catherine's Hospital can be saved from closure. The laughter stopped. Silence fell like a hammer. Then Deborah laughed again, louder this time. Oh, this is rich. This is absolutely rich. She turned to the crowd. Y'all hear this? We've got ourselves a trauma surgeon who shows up in a hoodie covered in blood with no ID, no badge, no appointment confirmation, and she expects us to believe she's here to save the hospital? I have confirmation. It's on my phone, in my bag. Maya gestured toward her leather messenger bag that had fallen during the struggle. If you'd just let me... Nice try. Morrison kicked the bag further away. We'll hold on to that. Evidence. Evidence of what? Maya's composure was fracturing. Whatever crime you committed before you showed up here covered in blood. I told you there was an accident. Martinez pulled out handcuffs. Ma'am, you can walk to the psych ward voluntarily, or we can make this official, your choice. This is insane. You're violating your rights, Deborah interrupted. You don't have rights when you're a danger to yourself and others. That's the law. She pulled out her phone. Dr. Patterson, we need you in the ER. We have a psychiatric emergency, possible violent episode. Through the ER windows, Maya could see the parking lot, could see the black town car that had dropped her off 10 minutes ago, could see her driver, probably wondering why she hadn't called for her bags yet. She'd flown 800 miles for this meeting, had spent 6 months reviewing St. Catherine's financial records, patient outcomes, staffing reports, had prepared a 200-page evaluation that could either save this failing hospital or recommend its permanent closure to the state health board. And now she was being restrained by security guards who thought she was a psychiatric patient. My phone, Maya said quietly. One call. That's all I need. One call to Richard Cole. Richard Cole doesn't take calls from people like you. Deborah's meaning was clear. He's in a very important meeting right now with very important people, real doctors, real consultants, people who belong here. I am the consultant he's meeting with. Deborah's expression hardened. You know what? I've had enough of this. She turned to Morrison. Take her upstairs. Full restraints. I want a complete psych evaluation before she goes near any patients or staff. The handcuffs clicked around Maya's wrists, cold metal against warm skin. The sound echoed in the suddenly quiet ER. This is a mistake. Maya's voice stayed level, even as panic clawed at her chest. A serious mistake that's going to cost this hospital everything. The only mistake was you thinking you could walk in here and play pretend. Deborah leaned close. Her breath smelled like coffee and contempt. Let me tell you something. I've been a nurse here for 23 years. I know a con artist when I see one. I know someone who doesn't belong when they walk through my doors. And honey, you definitely don't belong. The crowd parted as Morrison and Martinez led Maya toward the elevator. Medical students whispered behind cupped hands. Residents pulled out phones, probably texting about the crazy woman who claimed to be a doctor. Wait, a voice cut through the chaos. Everyone froze. Dr. James Chen pushed through the crowd. Asian American, early 40s, chief of emergency medicine. He'd been in Trauma Room 3 dealing with a critical patient. Now he stood in the hallway, bloody gloves still on, staring at Maya with confusion. Deborah, what's going on here?
Deborah straightened, confident in her authority. Psych patient tried to escape, claimed she's a doctor here to save the hospital. She gestured at Maya's handcuffed form, obviously delusional. Dr. Chen stepped closer, studied Maya's face. Where did she come from? Which room? We found her wandering the ER, trying to access restricted areas. Which room was she assigned to? Deborah hesitated. We assumed she came from psych. You assumed? Dr. Chen's voice went cold. So you restrained and handcuffed someone without verifying she was actually a patient? Look at her, Deborah gestured at Maya's appearance. Blood all over her hands, wearing street clothes, no ID, obviously disturbed. Dr. Chen turned to Maya. Ma'am, do you have identification? In my bag. Maya nodded toward where it had fallen. I tried to show them, but no one asked, Dr. Chen finished. He walked to the bag, picked it up carefully. May I? Please. He opened it. Inside, neatly organized, a wallet, phone, tablet, and a leather portfolio embossed with gold lettering. Dr. Maya Okonkwo, M.D., Ph.D., Healthcare Systems Analysis, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Dr. Chen's face went pale. He pulled out her CDC identification badge. The hologram caught the fluorescent lights. Unmistakable, genuine, official. Oh,
God, his voice barely a whisper. Deborah moved closer, squinted at the badge. That's fake. Obviously fake. It's not fake. Dr. Chen's hands trembled as he pulled out more items. Medical license, board certification in trauma surgery, board certification in emergency medicine, a CDC clearance card with security level 7 authorization. The highest civilian medical clearance in the country. Anyone can fake those. Deborah's voice had lost its confidence. Dr. Chen pulled out Maya's phone, held it up. The lock screen showed a photo of Maya in surgical scrubs standing between two other people. The caption read, CDC Emergency Response Team, Haiti Earthquake Relief, 2023. The woman on Maya's left in the photo was Dr. Rachel Morrison, current Surgeon General of the United States. The man on her right was Dr. Anthony Fauci. The crowd had gone completely silent. You could hear the ventilators breathing in nearby rooms, the heart monitors beeping their steady rhythms, the distant wail of an arriving ambulance. Deborah, Dr. Chen's voice was deadly quiet. Take off her handcuffs right now. But we don't know. Take them off now. Morrison fumbled with his keys. The handcuffs clicked open. Maya rubbed her wrists where red marks had formed. Dr. Okonkwo, Dr. Chen's voice shook. I am so profoundly sorry. There's no excuse for this. You're right. Maya's calm had returned, but now it carried weight. Steel underneath silk. There is no excuse. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. A man in an expensive suit stepped out. Mid-50s, graying hair, face flushed with stress. Richard Cole, hospital administrator. He took one look at the scene and his face went gray. Dr. Okonkwo? His voice cracked. Oh no. Oh God, no. You're early. My flight landed ahead of schedule. Maya's tone was professional, clinical. I arrived at 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes ago. I attempted to inform staff of my presence and request directions to your office. Instead, I was physically restrained, handcuffed, and nearly committed to psychiatric care against my will. Richard Cole looked like he might vomit.
This is Dr. Maya Okonkwo. Dr. Chen held up her credentials for everyone to see. CDC Healthcare Systems Analyst, the consultant we hired to evaluate whether St. Catherine's Hospital should remain open or be permanently shut down by the State Health Board. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Gasps, whispered curses, the sound of several people backing away slowly, trying to disappear. Deborah stood frozen, her confidence shattered. Mr. Cole, I didn't know. She looked like... Like what? Maya turned to face her directly. What did I look like, Nurse Walsh? Say it clearly so everyone understands. Deborah's mouth opened, closed. No words came. You saw a black woman in casual clothes with blood on her hands, and you assumed... Maya's voice cut like a scalpel. You assumed I was a psychiatric patient? You assumed I was dangerous? You assumed I didn't belong here? You never asked my name, never asked for identification, never considered that I might have a legitimate reason for being in your emergency room. I was trying to protect. Protect who? From what? From a woman standing calmly trying to explain her presence? Richard Cole stepped forward, desperate. Dr. Okonkwo, please, if we could just go to my office and discuss. Discuss? Maya's laugh was cold. Mr. Cole, I've been here for 13 minutes, and I've already seen everything I need to see about this hospital's culture, its leadership, and its fitness to remain open. She pulled her tablet from her bag, opened it, began typing with rapid precision. In the past 13 minutes, I witnessed staff restrain a visitor without verifying patient status, violation of patient rights protocols. I witnessed security apply handcuffs without cause, violation of acceptable force guidelines. I witnessed multiple staff members engage in discrimination based on appearance and race, violation of federal civil rights law. Each word fell like a judge's gavel.
Dr. Okonkwo, please, Richard's voice broke. This hospital serves 50,000 patients a year. We're the only trauma center within 100 miles. If you close us— I haven't decided anything yet. Maya looked up from her tablet. But I will tell you this, the evaluation period has officially begun. Every interaction I have with your staff will be documented. Every procedure I observe will be analyzed. Every policy will be scrutinized. She looked directly at Deborah. Starting with a full investigation into Nurse Walsh's actions today and her treatment of other patients who don't fit her definition of belonging. Deborah's face went from red to white. Mr. Cole, Don't. Richard held up his hand. Don't say anything else. He looked at Maya. Dr. Okonkwo, I understand you're upset, rightfully so, but I'm begging you, don't let one employee's mistake destroy 50 years of service to this community. One employee? Maya's eyebrows raised. She looked at the crowd of medical staff still standing there. How many of you witnessed what happened? Raise your hands. Slowly, reluctantly, hands went up. 15 people, maybe 20. How many of you spoke up? How many said, maybe we should verify before restraining her? The hands dropped.
Exactly. Maya closed her tablet. This isn't one employee's mistake, Mr. Cole. This is a cultural failure, a leadership failure, a systemic problem that suggests this hospital's issues go far deeper than finances. She walked toward the exit, her bag over her shoulder, blood still dried on her hands from saving a teenager's life. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to begin my formal evaluation. I suggest you spend tonight reviewing your policies on patient rights, visitor protocols, and staff conduct, because tomorrow I start looking at everything. Maya pushed through the ER doors into the afternoon sunlight. Behind her, chaos erupted. Richard Cole was already on his phone calling emergency staff meetings. Dr. Chen was ordering Deborah to his office immediately. Security guards were trying to explain themselves to anyone who would listen. And in the parking lot, Maya's driver stood waiting by the town car, exactly where she'd left him. Rough first day, Dr. O? He opened the door for her. Maya looked back at the hospital, at the building that might close in 30 days, at the staff who'd just made the worst mistake of their careers. You have no idea. She climbed into the car. Take me to the hotel. I need to clean up and make some calls. As the car pulled away, her phone buzzed, a text from her boss at the CDC. How's St. Catherine's looking? Should we recommend closure? Maya stared at the message, at the hospital disappearing in the rearview mirror, at the community that depended on it. She typed her response slowly, carefully. Day 1 evaluation complete. Significant concerns identified. We'll submit full report in 30 days as scheduled. But Dr. Morrison, this one is going to be complicated. She hit send and leaned back against the leather seat. Behind her, she didn't know that someone in the ER had recorded the entire incident, didn't know it was already being uploaded to social media, didn't know that by tomorrow morning the video would have 2 million views and St. Catherine's Hospital would be trending nationally for all the wrong reasons. 6 hours later, Richard Cole sat in his office, the walls closing in. His computer screen glowed with nightmare after nightmare. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Every platform showed the same video, the same 90 seconds that would destroy everything. Nurse grabs black woman in ER. Get back in your bed. Psych patients don't wander my ER. I'm not a patient. Sure you are. Security. The handcuffs clicking shut, the crowd laughing. Deborah's voice dripping with contempt. Honey, your job is to stay in bed and take your medication like a good girl. The video had been posted by a medical student, Sarah Kim, first year, idealistic, horrified by what she'd witnessed. Her caption was simple and devastating. This is Dr. Maya Okonkwo, CDC consultant, trauma surgeon. She came to evaluate if our hospital should stay open. Instead, we treated her like a criminal. This is why healthcare fails black patients every single day.
hashtag St. Catherine's Hospital, hashtag medical racism, hashtag CDC consultant. 2.3 million views in 6 hours, 47,000 comments. Every major news outlet had picked it up. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, medical journals, civil rights organizations, the state health board. Richard's phone hadn't stopped ringing. His email inbox showed 847 unread messages, most from lawyers, some from reporters, a few from colleagues at other hospitals, expressing sympathy for the career-ending disaster he'd just lived through.
His office door burst open. No knock, just Deborah Walsh, still in her scrubs, mascara running down her face. "They're firing me," her voice cracked. 23 years! 23 years, and they're firing me over one mistake!" Richard didn't look up from his computer. "It wasn't a mistake, Deborah. It was racism." "I didn't know who she was." "Exactly." Richard finally met her eyes. "You didn't know, so you assumed. You saw a black woman and your brain filled in the rest. Dangerous, doesn't belong, psychiatric patient, criminal." "That's not fair. I was trying to protect—" "Who? Who were you protecting?" Richard's voice rose. "A woman standing calmly asking for directions?" "The blood on her hands, the casual clothes, she looked—" "Human?" Richard interrupted. "She looked like someone who stopped to help at an accident scene, like someone who put saving a life above looking professional. But you couldn't see that. You could only see what you wanted to see." "I've worked here for 23 years. Deborah's hands shook. I'm not." "The hospital's legal team spent the last 4 hours reviewing your employment record." Richard pulled up a file on his screen. "Want to know what they found?" Deborah went very still. 17 complaints from black patients over the past 8 years. 17! All claiming you treated them differently, spoke to them differently, made assumptions about their pain levels, their drug-seeking behavior, their ability to pay. "Those were all investigated. I was cleared." "You were cleared because no one was recording, because it was your word against theirs, because the hospital didn't want to admit we had a problem." Richard's voice broke. "But now the whole world is watching, Deborah. Now there's video evidence of exactly who you are." "I have a mortgage. I have kids in college. I have—" "You should have thought about that before you handcuffed a CDC official." Richard stood up, walked to the window, looked down at the parking lot where protesters were already gathering. 20 people holding signs. "Racism kills patients. Fire Nurse Walsh. Shut down St. Catherine's." By tomorrow, there would be hundreds. "The board is meeting tonight." Richard's voice was hollow. "Emergency session. They're going to recommend immediate closure." "No!" Deborah shot to her feet. "They can't! This hospital serves—" 50,000 patients a year. I know. I wrote that number in every grant application, every funding request, every desperate plea to stay open. Richard turned to face her. But none of that matters anymore, because Dr. Maya Okonkwo is going to write a report that says this hospital's culture is so toxic, so systemically racist, that patients are better off traveling 100 miles to the next trauma center than being treated here. You don't know that. "I do know that, because if I were her, that's exactly what I'd write." Richard sat back down heavily. "Security restrained her without cause. You violated her civil rights. 15 staff members watched and said nothing. And somewhere in this hospital, there are probably hundreds of patients who received substandard care because they didn't look like they belonged here." Deborah sank back into her chair. "What am I supposed to do?" "I honestly don't know, Deborah. I genuinely don't know." His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. He answered anyway. At this point, what did he have to lose? "Richard Cole?" "Mr. Cole, this is Pamela Morrison. I'm Dr. Okonkwo's supervisor at the CDC." Richard's stomach dropped. "Dr. Morrison, I want to apologize for what happened today." "I'm sure you do."
Her voice was ice. "I'm calling to inform you that the CDC is accelerating the evaluation timeline. Instead of 30 days, Dr. Okonkwo will submit her preliminary findings in 72 hours." 72 hours? That's impossible. We need time to... Time to what? Hide your problems? Coach your staff? Bury the evidence? Pamela's voice sharpened. "Mr. Cole, one of my senior analysts was physically restrained and nearly committed to psychiatric care because your staff couldn't imagine a black woman might be a doctor. That kind of institutional racism doesn't develop overnight. It's systemic, and the CDC needs to know immediately whether patients are safe in your facility." We can change. We can implement new protocols, new training. In 72 hours, you're going to fix decades of racist culture in 72 hours? Pamela paused. "I've reviewed the video 17 times. Want to know what struck me most?" Richard didn't answer. Not one person helped her. Not one doctor, nurse, or staff member said, "Wait, let's verify this first." They saw the handcuffs go on and they went back to work. That's not a training problem, Mr. Cole. That's a culture problem, and culture problems don't fix themselves in 72 hours. "Dr. Morrison, please, this hospital is all this community has." "Then maybe this community deserves better." The line went dead. Richard set down his phone, looked at Deborah still crying in her chair, looked at his computer screen showing the protesters multiplying in the parking lot, looked at the photo on his desk of St. Catherine's Hospital ribbon-cutting ceremony, 1974. His grandfather had been hospital administrator then, his father after that, and now Richard. 3 generations of Coles keeping this hospital alive, about to end on his watch because Nurse Deborah Walsh couldn't see past the color of someone's skin. "Get out of my office." Richard's voice was quiet, final. Deborah stood slowly, walked to the door, turned back one last time. "I'm sorry."
That doesn't fix anything. Richard didn't look at her. That doesn't unhandcuff Dr. Okonkwo. That doesn't unupload the video. That doesn't save the hospital. Your sorry means absolutely nothing. Deborah left. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Richard pulled up the CDC evaluation criteria on his screen. 47 different metrics: patient care quality, financial stability, staff competency, community trust, ethical standards, civil rights compliance. St. Catherine's had been failing on most of them before today. Now, after the video went viral, they were failing on all of them. His phone buzzed. Text from the board chairman. "Emergency meeting, 9 p.m. Bring termination lists. We're cutting 40% of staff to show good faith to CDC." Richard stared at the message. 40%. That was 230 people. 230 families. 230 lives destroyed because Deborah Walsh thought she knew who belonged in her emergency room. He opened his desk drawer. Inside, a bottle of scotch he'd kept for the worst days. He'd never opened it. Tonight felt like the right time. Maya walked through the automatic doors of St. Catherine's Hospital wearing a tailored navy suit, CDC identification badge prominently displayed. Her leather portfolio held 200 pages of preliminary findings, organizational charts, and a growing list of violations. The ER had transformed overnight. Every staff member wore their ID badge at eye level. No one made eye contact. Conversations stopped when she passed. Fear hung in the air like disinfectant. Good. Dr. Okonkwo, Richard Cole approached from the administrative wing. He'd aged 10 years since yesterday. Dark circles under his eyes, suit wrinkled, coffee stains on his shirt. "Thank you for coming. I've arranged meetings with every department head, full access to all records, whatever you need." "I need to observe normal operations." Maya's voice was professional, clinical. "Not whatever performance you've rehearsed overnight." "I understand. If I could explain." "The video explained everything, Mr. Cole. Maya pulled out her tablet. I've watched it 17 times. I've also reviewed the social media response, the news coverage, the patient complaints that have flooded in overnight. Want to know how many? Richard's face went gray. 347. 347 patients contacted the CDC hotline last night with complaints about discriminatory treatment at St. Catherine's. Most are Black or Latino. Most describe experiences eerily similar to mine. Assumptions about drug seeking, dismissal of pain complaints, longer wait times, rougher treatment. We're investigating all of them. Are you? Because I also pulled your internal complaint records from the past 5 years. Know how many formal complaints were filed about discriminatory treatment? Richard didn't answer. 29. And how many resulted in disciplinary action? Maya looked up. 0. Every single complaint was marked unsubstantiated or insufficient evidence, which means either your patients are all lying or your investigation process is designed to protect staff instead of patients. Dr. Okonkwo, I inherited some of these problems. I've only been administrator for 3 years. 3 years where you did nothing. 3 years where Nurse Walsh racked up 17 additional complaints. 3 years where you watched this hospital's culture rot from the inside. Down the hallway, Maya saw them. Hospital staff lined up along the walls, silent, watching. Some looked ashamed. Others looked resentful. A few looked terrified. And there, near the nurses' station, stood Nurse Walsh. She wasn't in uniform, just street clothes, a cardboard box filled with personal items from her locker.
Their eyes met across the corridor. Deborah's face crumpled. She opened her mouth, maybe to apologize again, maybe to explain, but Maya raised one hand. Not interested. She turned to Richard. I'm starting in the ER. I want to observe patient intake procedures, specifically how staff interact with patients of different racial backgrounds. Of course, Dr. Chen is expecting you. They walked through the ER doors. The organized chaos of yesterday had been replaced by eerie quiet, too quiet. Everyone on their best behavior, everyone terrified of being caught on camera, of becoming the next viral video, the next canceled employee. Dr. Chen approached nervously. Dr. Okonkwo, I wanted to apologize again for yesterday. I should have intervened sooner. You intervened eventually. Maya's tone was neutral, unlike the other 15 people who watched me get handcuffed and went back to work. Dr. Chen winced. I've reviewed our protocols, made some changes already. New intake procedures, mandatory ID verification before any physical restraint, additional training on implicit bias. Training? Maya almost smiled. Mr. Cole, Dr. Chen, can I be honest with you? They both nodded. I don't think training fixes this. I've implemented bias training at 47 hospitals across the country. Want to know the success rate? Silence. 12%. Only 12% show measurable improvement in patient care outcomes for minorities. You know why? Maya walked to the nurses' station, pulled up a chair, sat down like she owned the place. Because training assumes people don't know racism is wrong, but everyone knows racism is wrong. They do it anyway. They do it because it's easier, because it's habitual, because they can. She opened her portfolio, pulled out a printed screenshot of the video, Nurse Walsh's face frozen in a sneer. Nurse Walsh knew racism was wrong. She'd been through your mandatory bias training twice, according to her file. And yesterday, she still looked at me and saw a threat, saw someone who didn't belong, saw a problem to be contained. Dr. Chen shifted uncomfortably. So what do you recommend, if not training? Consequences. Maya's voice went hard. Real, permanent, career-ending consequences. You want to know why most hospitals fail at addressing racism? Because there are no stakes. Complaints get filed, HR investigates, staff get a stern talking to, maybe they attend a workshop, then everything goes back to normal. Nothing changes because nothing has to change. Richard spoke quietly.
Nurse Walsh was terminated this morning, effective immediately. Good, that's one person. What about the 15 others who watched and said nothing? We're reviewing their conduct. Reviewing isn't discipline. Reviewing is waiting for the news cycle to move on so you can sweep everything under the rug. Maya stood. Here's what's going to happen. I'm spending the next 72 hours documenting everything, every interaction, every procedure, every patient complaint, every policy failure. And then I'm writing a report that will determine whether this hospital continues to exist. She looked around the ER, at the staff pretending not to listen, at the patients in gurneys lining the hallway, at the building that might close, forcing everyone to drive 100 miles for emergency care.
You want me to recommend keeping St. Catherine's open? Then show me something worth saving. Show me a culture that values every patient equally. Show me staff who speak up instead of standing by. Show me leadership that prioritizes people over PR. Maya walked toward the patient intake area. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. Behind her, Richard and Dr. Chen exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing. They were about to lose everything, and they had 72 hours to prove they deserved a second chance. Maya sat in the hospital's empty conference room at 11:47 p.m. Her laptop glowed in the darkness, showing page after page of findings, good and bad, promising and damning. The door opened quietly. An older black woman in scrubs stepped in. Name tag read, Patricia Williams, RN, 34 years. Dr. Okonkwo, I hope I'm not disturbing you. Maya looked up. Come in. Patricia closed the door, sat down across from Maya. Her hands trembled slightly. I saw what happened to you on Tuesday. I'm ashamed I didn't speak up. You were there? Not in the ER, but I heard about it within 10 minutes. Everyone did. Patricia's voice broke. And I did nothing, just like I've done nothing for 34 years while watching patients like me get treated differently. Maya closed her laptop, gave Patricia her full attention. I'm black. I've worked here since I was 23. I've seen it all. The assumptions, the dismissals, the rougher treatment. Patricia pulled a worn notebook from her pocket. I started keeping records 15 years ago. Every incident I witnessed, every complaint I heard, every patient who left feeling like they didn't matter. She slid the notebook across the table. Maya opened it. Page after page of handwritten notes, dates, names, descriptions, hundreds of entries. Why didn't you report this? Patricia laughed bitterly. I did, 7 times. Filed formal complaints, requested meetings with administration. You know what happened? Maya waited. Nothing. Every time, nothing. They'd investigate themselves and find themselves innocent. Eventually, I stopped trying, figured it was better to keep my head down, keep my job, keep my pension. Tears rolled down Patricia's cheeks. But after what happened to you, after watching that video, I realized I'm part of the problem. My silence enabled people like Deborah Walsh. Maya studied the notebook. The dates went back to 2009, detailed accounts of patients being ignored, pain dismissed, assumptions made, a 15-year record of systemic failure. Patricia, can I use this in my report? That's why I'm here. That's why I'm risking my pension and my career. Patricia met Maya's eyes. This hospital needs to change or it needs to close. No more half measures, no more looking away. You understand what this means. When this report goes public, they'll know you provided evidence. Your colleagues will hate me, I know. But I'm 60 years old. I've spent 34 years watching people suffer because of the color of their skin. If losing my job is the price for finally telling the truth, then that's a price I'm willing to pay. She walked to the door, paused.
The next morning, the final decision. The boardroom was packed. 23 board members.
Richard Cole, Dr. Chen, Patricia Williams sitting in the back corner, her presence a silent testimony. And at the head of the table, Dr. Maya Okonkwo. Her presentation was loaded. 73 slides, 200 pages of appendices, the fate of a hospital in a PowerPoint. Good morning. Maya's voice was steady, professional. I've spent 72 hours evaluating St. Catherine's Hospital. What I found was both deeply troubling and cautiously hopeful. She clicked to the first slide, the video, Nurse Walsh's face frozen in contempt. This incident was not an aberration, it was a revelation, a glimpse into a culture of discrimination that has existed here for decades. Click. Patricia's notebook pages. These are records kept by Nurse Patricia Williams over 15 years. 347 documented incidents of discriminatory treatment. The board members shifted uncomfortably. Click. These are the 347 patient complaints filed since Tuesday, all describing similar experiences. Click. These are your internal complaint records, 29 complaints in 5 years, 0 disciplinary actions. Richard Cole looked like he might be sick. However, Maya's tone shifted. I also observed significant changes in the past 72 hours. Click. New protocols, new training, new oversight. Dr. Chen implemented new intake procedures that require ID verification before any physical restraint. Richard Cole established a patient advocacy hotline with direct reporting to the State Health Board. The nursing staff volunteered to undergo additional bias training from external organizations. Click. Charts showing wait times by racial demographics. When I compared your patient care data from this week to the previous 6 months, something interesting emerged. Suddenly, Black patients are waiting the same amount of time as white patients. Suddenly, pain complaints are being taken seriously, regardless of skin color. Suddenly, everyone is following protocols that should have been standard all along. She looked around the room. Which raises the question, why did it take a viral video and a CDC investigation for you to treat all patients equally? Why wasn't this happening before? Silence. I'll tell you why. Because there were no consequences. Because discrimination was easier than change. Because this hospital's leadership prioritized reputation over justice. Maya clicked to her final slide. 2 words. My recommendation. The room held its breath. The CDC has guidelines for when to recommend hospital closure. Facilities that pose immediate danger to patients. Facilities with systemic failures that cannot be remedied. Facilities where the culture is so toxic that reform is impossible. She paused. St. Catherine's Hospital meets many of those criteria, but not all. Richard's head snapped up. I'm recommending conditional continuation. The hospital will remain open under the following non-negotiable terms. She pulled up a list. 1. Complete leadership restructuring. Richard Cole, you're being reassigned to a non-supervisory role with a 40% pay cut. The board will hire a new administrator with proven experience in healthcare equity. This will be supervised by the CDC. Richard nodded slowly, relief and shame mixing on his face. 2. Every staff member will undergo comprehensive bias training from external organizations, not optional, not online modules, real, supervised, documented training. Anyone who refuses is terminated immediately. Click.
3. Patricia Williams is being promoted to Director of Patient Advocacy. She will report directly to the State Health Board and the CDC. She has the authority to investigate any complaint and recommend terminations without administrative approval. Patricia gasped from her corner. 4.
This hospital will publicly release all internal complaint records for the past 10 years. Everything. Every complaint, every investigation, every resolution. Complete transparency. The board members looked horrified. 5. Quarterly evaluations by the CDC for the next 3 years. Any backsliding, any indication that the changes are cosmetic, any return to the old culture, this hospital closes immediately. Maya closed her laptop. This is your one chance, your only chance, not because you've earned it, but because 50,000 patients deserve access to emergency care, because closing this hospital punishes the community for your failures, because Patricia Williams showed me that some people here are ready to fight for real change. She stood. St. Catherine's Hospital doesn't get to go back to normal. Normal was the problem. You will transform completely or you will close. Those are your only options. Richard Cole stood shakily. Dr. Okonkwo, thank you. We won't let you down. Don't thank me. Maya's voice was steel. Thank Nurse Patricia Williams. Thank the 347 patients who came forward. Thank every person who will no longer accept discrimination as the cost of health care. She walked to the door, paused. And Mr. Cole, if I ever hear about another incident like what happened to me, I will personally recommend immediate closure. No investigation, no second chances. This hospital will cease to exist. Maya looked at each board member. Remember that. Remember that your jobs, your reputations, your legacy depend on treating every patient with equal dignity. Every patient, every time. She left. The door closed. Behind her, the boardroom erupted in frantic discussion. Some board members resigned immediately, unwilling to face the scrutiny. Others began planning the transformation. Richard Cole sat alone at the table, staring at nothing, processing the fact that he'd kept his job but lost everything else. And Patricia Williams sat in the corner, tears streaming down her face, finally believing that change was possible. Maya stood outside St. Catherine's Hospital on a warm September morning. The building looked the same, but felt different. Her phone buzzed. News alert. St. Catherine's Hospital receives national recognition for healthcare equity initiatives. Patient satisfaction among minority communities up 73%. Complaint rates down 91%. CDC cites facility as model for systemic reform. She smiled. Her driver pulled up. Ready for the airport, Dr. O? One more stop. Maya walked through the ER doors. The staff looked up, startled, but this time the fear was gone, replaced by respect, by recognition. Dr. Okonkwo! Patricia Williams approached, her Director of Patient Advocacy badge gleaming. We weren't expecting you. Surprise inspection, Maya smiled. CDC protocol. How are things? See for yourself, Patricia gestured to the ER.
Maya watched, a black teenage boy with a skateboard injury being treated with the same urgency as a white businessman, a Latina woman's pain complaints being taken seriously, an elderly Asian man being addressed respectfully by his name. Small things, basic things, things that should have always been standard. The new administrator is incredible, Patricia said. Dr. Jennifer Washington, black woman, former civil rights attorney. She doesn't tolerate anything. Maya nodded. And the staff? 17 people resigned rather than complete the bias training. Good riddance. Patricia's voice was firm. The ones who stayed are different now. Better. Or at least they know they have to be. They walked past the nurses' station. A young black nurse smiled at Maya.
Dr. Okonkwo, I just wanted to say, you changed my life. I was planning to quit healthcare. Now I have hope again. Maya touched her shoulder. You changed your own life by staying, by fighting for patients who look like you. That's the real work. Outside in the parking lot, Maya turned back to look at the hospital one final time. 6 months ago, she'd been handcuffed here, humiliated, treated like a criminal. Today, St. Catherine's Hospital was saving lives, all lives, equally. Not because they'd had bias training, but because they'd faced consequences. Real consequences, career-ending consequences, the kind that make people choose change over comfort. Dr. O, her driver opened the car door. Alana? Alana. Maya climbed in. I have another hospital to evaluate, somewhere in Texas. Same problems, different faces. Because the work was never done, the fight was never over. But today, in this town, at this hospital, 50,000 patients could breathe a little easier, could trust a little more, could believe that when they walked through those doors, they would be seen as human beings deserving of care. Not as threats, not as problems, not as people who didn't belong, just as patients. And that was worth fighting for.
Share this story if you believe healthcare should be equal for everyone. Comment below with your own experiences with discrimination in medical settings. Your voice matters. Like, comment, and subscribe so you'll be here for the next story.